Even though I know you can figure it out yourselves, there's so many people are just having a hard time with it. It really doesn't seem to me to be much of a reason for it, except that you really never understood what it means to be hydrophobic or hydrophilic. You don't understand what a phospholipid is. Even though we drew it out in class, even though you had it in your study guide, even though we did all that, even though you had a test on it, it's still kind of like, and based on the fact that I've seen people, I just read most of the study guides now, and I'll continue to read them tonight and grade them, and every time I look at someone copying someone else's, who copied someone else's, I see the answers copied from one person to the other, I'm not surprised. Right? When I sit there and I look at people that sometimes they pay attention, sometimes they don't, they drift off. I can see your eyes kind of waving off. You don't ask questions in class. You don't come for help. And then I see you having trouble with what's going on in this activity. And I'm not surprised. Now, some people are genuinely confused because they're having a hard time understanding the three dimensions of a membrane. But that's the point of this activity. There's two main ideas of this activity. It's not your skill at creating an origami box, right? It's about, do you understand hydrophobic versus hydrophilic? And what it means for folding of proteins. And two, do you understand how these components all fit together? So let's take a look at one of these at a time, and I'll try to help you out here. Your job is to color these in two colors. I understand that there seems to be three colors here, right? 3 shades of gray. Don't worry about that. The reason they have those 3 shades of gray is because they were trying to focus on another aspect of a protein. What I'm using this model for is to help you understand that polar mixes with polar and nonpolar mixes with nonpolar. I need to know that you understand that. Even though we talked about oil mixes with oil and oil does not mix with water, even though we did all those examples and all those hours of talking and looking and problems, it doesn't matter if you can't do it, right? If you can't do it, you're just showing that, man, I really just don't understand. For whatever the reason, right? Pick a reason, it doesn't matter. The point is you don't understand. So now let's look at this. This is a membrane. Yeah, someone can turn the light off. And you should know that a membrane, as we discussed already, and I don't want to go into it again, you can go back and look at the other videos from the previous day's worth of work. You have a phospholipid bilayer, right? Yeah. We talked about that. Just the last video I uploaded yesterday I think that was clear. And you had two sections. I chose to draw them as the blue area, blue for water, right? Included the heads, right? And then you could either choose yellow or whatever color you want. And then there was a section that was a different color. And I said, okay, well, this section is the hydrophobic. And we talked about what hydrophobic meant. And then this section was hydrophilic. And we said that there was 2 words for this, hydrophilic, or what we call polar, right? And this is polar down here. And then that the middle part was nonpolar. Now that's what we talked about before. And that was yesterday's work. All right. So this polar hydrophilic, sorry. And we went into hydrophilic means love, and hydro means water, and phobic means fear of, and hydro means water, and we talked about all that. I'm not going to go into that again. So when we're doing this, I don't know, but can't you see that if you fold this down, that this part is the same as this? I mean, do you see that? Okay. And that this part here would be as if you were looking on the top of the membrane? Yes? So this is if you were looking down on the membrane from on top. If you're looking down here, this is what you'd see. And then, of course, the other side would look just like this. Right? Okay, so as long as we get that. So understand, looking at this, and then looking at this, then that leads me to assume that you'd understand that all of this, using the same colors that I'm using, all of this would be blue. Right? That I think most people got that. I think most people that I saw doing it understood this. And I think I've seen just about everybody. There were a few people that missed it because they had some kind of game or something. I don't know what's going on. So these are all remembering the structure of a phospholipid. And again, if you don't remember that the head is a phosphate or what the structure of a phospholipid is, look at the study guide for the last test, or look at the video from the last, I think it was a few days ago, where I went through and drew and broke it down. The glycerol molecule, the two fatty acids, the phosphate head, we simplified it. I'm not going to do it again, but that's it. And of course, these are the heads on the other side of the phospholipid, right? How many heads do we have here? 2 heads, 2 layers, phospholipid bilayer, 2 blues. So you'd have to expect that there'd be a second blue here, right? We're all in agreement on that so far? No one's confused. We're all seem to be on the same page. And that would be the same here. Now we're talking about, that's the hydrophilic, that's the part that's sticking out towards the water, right? Because remembering that on the outside there's water and on the inside there's water, so the blue parts are pointed. Now I'm choosing blue. I don't care what colors you choose. Are we clear? Yeah. You use whatever color you want. I'm just choosing blue because it made sense to me. So then, that means that this part here is that green part, which is the hydrophobic area, the parts that dissolve each other, but they don't dissolve things that are hydrophilic because they're hydrophobic. So that makes sense to me as well. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. So when I look at a membrane, one of your membranes, if it looks something like this, then I'm pretty confident, assuming you didn't copy off me, which if you did, that's fine. I guess that's going to happen. But if you're not understanding it, you're not going to get it right on the test. And then when your folks ask me, why doesn't my kid understand? Why are they not doing well on the test? Then the answer is going to have to be, well, they're just not processing the information. You can't copy and expect to understand. Copying will only get you a minimal understanding. It's the lowest kind of thinking. It is thinking. You do think. Copying something does help, but it's only a small amount, a small help, because it's the lowest possible help thinking process is to copy something. In fact, I told a story last period. Somebody copied somebody else's paper, and they actually copied the person's name along with it. And you'd be surprised how often that happens, because it doesn't require a lot of thinking. So you're just copying, and oops, and then of course they argue that they didn't copy, which is really interesting. So, anyways,
It must be nice.
It wasn't nice for them. They didn't find it. What was funny is they literally took it to the principal, the old principal, because it was the old principal. They were arguing with the old principal. I did not copy. He's making this up. And the old principal and I looked at each other and it's like, and the mom was there. He called his mom, not true, mother. And
Not true, mother.
And then we showed mom in his handwriting, somebody else's name. How'd that happen? All right. So this is, I think, the part where people get confused on. What the heck is this and what am I doing? But that's why I drew each of these out yesterday. I drew them out and color-coded them for you. Right? But people have trouble when they're looking at the paper imagining what's going to happen when I fold and cut. I mean, that's what happens, right? So there's a couple things you can solve this with. I'm going to do one of these, and then you're going to do the rest of them. So the thinking is, you need to imagine it folded up. So you need to imagine this part is folded down, right? Because see, there's a fold here. So if I'm going to fold this, I'm going to fold it down, right? And so if I'm looking at this from the side, I'm going to see this line, right? What's that line? That's this line right here.
Folded down.
Right? It's going to be folded down away from us, right? And then you're going to get something that looks like that, right? And it's going to come across. And then you see there's a fold here, right? There's a dotted line here and there's a dotted line here. They're just going to be folded. It's going to be folded away, right? And there's some more dotted lines, some more folds, right? Because what you're going to do is you're going to form kind of a section. This side's going to go that way, right? Kind of around. It's hard to draw, right? But it's going to go around that way. Hard for me to draw because I'm not an artist. So. It's going to wrap around. Very good. That's right. Kind of like a bracelet. Yeah, it's like a tunnel. You're making a tunnel through the membrane. And then down here, it's also going to wrap around, right? And, of course, the center, there's a cutout. There's a center that comes down here. Well, that's going to fit, right? If there's a membrane here, right? Let me go ahead and kind of move this out of the way. If I have this membrane here, that's going to fit right there, right? Expand this. It's going to fit right there. Right? And so if we do that, if we fit that, then this part of the protein, right? Then that part that's touching the green, that part of the protein needs to be green, right? Because it's touching the lipid bilayer, and this part of the protein has to be green too. Is that right? Now, if we take a look at the rest of it, though, the rest of it, what should it be? It should be blue, right? Not the center part, but the rest of everything else should be blue. So that needs to be blue. All this needs to be blue. And I did this. I drew this out yesterday. Go back and look at the video that I posted. And all this part here has to be blue as well. Because this is sticking into the cell. This is on the inside of the membrane. And this side over here is sticking out of the cell. That's the outside of the membrane. Now, taking a look, so that's why that's that way. Now, let's take a look at this section. Now, there's a tunnel here. That's the whole point of a channel protein, isn't it? So there's this tunnel that comes down here. I'm going to draw it in black ink. I'm actually going to erase some of this. There's a tunnel. And that tunnel comes down this way. It wraps around, but there's this tunnel. This is cut, right? It's cut. Sorry, it's like taking a Twinkie and cutting it in half longwise, right? Right? I'm thinking. I don't know what other thing. What do you got? What's long and tubular? A what? Okay, but there's no inside to a breadstick, though. It's just cheese. Okay, cheesy breadstick. All right, so take a cheesy breadstick and cut it in half. You got the inside, right? So it's like we're looking at the inside. That's where the cheese would be here, right? So, all right, so there's this tunnel. This side at the top, we'll look at the top in a second. This part right here, the center, has to be what? It's a tunnel. This is how things get in and out. What color does that have to be? Blue. It has to be blue. Why? Because it's hydrophilic. It has to be because it's going to have water coming in. It's connected, continuous with the outside. It's continuous with outside and inside the cell, isn't it? So all that's inside. So the protein that's touching the water part is going to let the thing that's going to let the little ion come through, right?
What color are you talking? That's the question.
Right? The thing that lets things come through. This is the tunnel. This all has to be blue because this is sticking out. There's water going in. So on the inside it has to be blue. But this part is all going to be stuck in the membrane, in the fatty acids. So what must this color be? A different color. It's only two colors. Green. It has to be green. There's only two colors here. It's either hydrophobic or it's hydrophilic. It's either hydrophobic or it's hydrophilic. That's all there is. So that part's in the membrane. So when I draw the membrane, if I drew it, you don't have to draw it because you're building it. You're literally building it. When I draw it, but if I were going to draw it, or if I colored it, what would happen is that you'd have these, you would have heads here, right? Actually, they're much smaller. The heads here. The heads over here.
Is you mad?
Why are you talking about nonsense? And of course you have your two fatty acids. Again, if you understand what a phospholipid is, you know that there's a phosphate and then fatty acid tails. Now this end here, this side here is all hydrophilic, right? Because it's part of those heads. What is that supposed to be? That's supposed to be here, this part. And this part here is hydrophilic. And this part here is hydrophilic, right? And so you can see that when you draw out the protein, you can see that the green is on the inside here. Does everybody agree that this is how it would work out if you drew it? And so when we're looking at this at this drawing here, it's drawing what? What am I drawing there? I'm drawing this thing, isn't it? Now I had to imagine that I folded this, and that's that fold here, and I folded this, and I had to imagine that this was going to be in the middle, that the middle part was going to be blue. So if I were going to color it before I did it, I'd have to assume. I'm going to talk to you three in a minute. I'm going to finish what I'm doing though. So we'd have to imagine that this would be blue, right? Yeah. And we'd have to imagine that all of this would be blue. Why? Because it's sticking out of the cell. All this is on top of the cell. When it's all folded, it's going to sit on top. That's this part right here, you see? And then I'd have to imagine that this whole part is sitting on top. See, that's also part of that. So that would all have to be blue as well. And you'll see when you take it out and fold it, right? So all this would be blue. Why is that all blue? It's all blue because it's all sticking out of the cell. If you look at it and think about it, all that is outside the cell. And this side, all this would be blue as well. That would also be on the inside though, right? Yeah. 1 second. Let me finish this idea. And so what would be in the middle? This is the green. This is the part that's green. This part that touches the lipids. Now, you might ask, wait, what about the tunnel? Well, the tunnel would. This is that cheesy stick that's been cut in half, right? Mm-hmm. So this part here is on the outside, but it would be encircling a blue section in the center. It would be encircling a blue section in the center. So we need to consider this when we're making these drawings. Mr. Mendoza's room. Yes, ma'am. Bye-bye. Do we all understand that idea? And so when we're looking at this one seems, to me, seems easy. I think it sounds like it's easy to you. Unfortunately, it's been hard for people to actually do it on their own. When you're looking at this one, imagine who's going in. Don't get confused by the fact that there's two different color grays here. The only thing you're asking yourself, when I fold this up, if I fold this, is this part on the outside or on the inside? Is this part on the outside or the inside, or is it part of the membrane? If I were going to draw this, and this is a little harder, so let me say this. I could see in my mind that this part here is not going to be folded. It's going to be where? Where's that going to be? At this part, that's going to be on. This part's all on the outside. This is the only part that's folding down. This part's on the outside. This part's on the inside, and the part that's in the middle is where? Right there. Right. So the only part that's going to be green, if I drew this one, if I color this one, would be this section. Why? Because if I fold it and I place it in the membrane, that's the only part that's going to be touching the fatty acids. Are we clear? All right, well, I'm going to let you get on with this. If you get too loud, you're going to get in trouble. I have your ebook access code letters. I want to give them to you. I want this room clean before you leave. It was relatively clean when you came in. I need to see those three ladies up here, so somebody back there might be in trouble. I don't want to say your name because I'm recording. Yes, question?
Can I go use the bathroom?
Yes, you may. All right, you three ladies come here. Everyone else get to work. Turn the lights on, please. Thank you. As I call you, come up here and get your ebook access.